When you're creating videos, do you batch them? Do you record a whole bunch of YouTube videos at once to do a video a day?
You are going to be breaking news because this is a question I think nobody has known. People have speculated for years, so I want people to pay attention. This is you're breaking a big scoop here.
Woo!
Yeah, so during the pandemic, when the peak of it, when the videographer couldn't get to me, fortunately, I had a photographer friend who convinced me to buy this beautiful Leica camera. And so Mrs. H, my wife, she was learning. She's always liked photography. She learned like from he's like telling her like through the phone, like, how to make videos. And she's made beautiful videos. And so we would do them at home. And it became a little bit lazier because it'd be like, I don't know, let's make 5. I'm in the mood for 5 right now. You'd spend an hour, you'd do it. But yeah, historically, I remember we were in Macau a couple years ago and I met this brand new videographer that was working for us at the time. And I'm like, we're going to spend, he's like, what's the project? I'm like, we're going to spend a day and I'm going to record 30 videos.
Oh my gosh.
He's like, yeah, like, okay, but you're not going to record 30 videos. Like, what do you mean? I'm like, I'm going to sit down. I have a list of videos I'm going to talk about. I'm going to do it in like 1 or 2 takes. And then we're going to do the next one. He's like, it's impossible. I'm like, okay, well, just come and watch. And we did like, 28 or 29 videos. We started at like 9 in the morning and we finished at, 7 at night. And we did something like 29 videos. More recently, I've kind of, because we have a guy who's more or less full time with us, I've started doing it like half days. Like, let's do 2 to 8 at night and we'll do, like 16 or 17 or something. But yeah.
That's incredible. How do you work from? So that your videos are 10 minutes long ish, and you've got a punchy little lead in, and then you talk about it. Is it off the cuff once you decide the topic of the video, or how are you preparing?
Yeah, I'll take some notes. I think that Jerry Seinfeld, again, to talk about Jerry Seinfeld, talks about how like anything I do is material. And so I'll walk around, I'll be taking notes on a scratch pad or on a phone or something. I've been like 80 years old since I was born. So I'm still using like scratch pads and pens. I'm not like, like a phone. I'm like, in the pandemic, when they're like, can you scan the QR code to come into the store? I'm like, I have no idea how that works. You just give me the thing, I'll write down my name and phone number. And I'm writing down notes for videos. And I'll have a couple bullet points or something. I try and make it relatively tight. I also think that if it's too tight, then you're losing the spirit. Sometimes I think there are some people who they just want like only the facts. Like, what's the best country to incorporate offshore? Like, they don't want any nuance. This is like, Tajikistan. All right, great. Off I go. And they don't understand perhaps that like everyone has a different story. But I think that for me, 80% of doing this is being in the right mindset. And so I try and put that into each of the videos. And I think that being somewhat off the cuff is helpful, where you have a couple things you want to discuss from a strategic point of view. But again, you can talk all you want about St. Lucia's citizenship and you can travel visa free to 137 countries. But like, I want to tell you about the time that I went to Singapore and I was in the really long line. And they're like, all right, you go over here and you go over here. And then you stand up and the guy's like, where's this from? I don't know. And like, what happens next? Like, to me, that's the story. And by the way, what happens next is they stamped it and on I went. But, I think people want to hear that because they want a sense of comfort. They want to know, like, how is this going to apply to my life? I don't want to know, like, the sales pitch bullet points, like, and so I think being off the cuff has worked very well.
Yeah, no, I was assuming what a little I knew. I asked you earlier about being in the broadcast industry that maybe you had some journalism training or something like that. But also if you've done thousands of videos and
my training is dropping out of, or maybe failing. I forget, either dropping out or failing out of a party school. But certainly being around a father and a grandfather who were in public speaking, I suppose, was helpful.
Yeah, I feel like we've covered a lot of stuff, and you've, just like you do on YouTube, you've dropped a lot of your own journey along the way. And I'd love to, if there's anything we haven't touched on or that I haven't asked you about that you think is important, feel free to just.
Yeah, I think that For me, I'm a lifelong entrepreneur. I don't know what it's like to work. I mean, I've had little summer jobs in high school, working at restaurants and stuff. But I don't know what it's like to have like a real corporate job. I don't know what it's like to really go to university. I certainly don't know what it's like to work for a government or a bureaucracy. And so I just kind of have, to a certain extent, my own little bubble of entrepreneurship, and that's what I know. And what is that bubble? Especially, where I come from. And this is one of the things I teach people on my team. They'll be like, you know what people say around the world that I have to kind of beat out of them is, well, I tried my best. Nobody in the business world cares that you put in an effort. Try your worst if you want. If you get the desired result, that's what we're looking for. And I think that when it comes to the nomad capitalist stuff, again, it's finance, it's how do you lower your taxes? How do you protect your money? It's residence and citizenship. How do you live in places that serve you well? How do you make sure you're protected from just one country? It's investments. How do you maximize the money you have? It's so easy to make excuses. It's so easy to say, oh, you know what people say in the US, I'll leave when it gets bad enough. I don't know, but I was reading Time magazine in the year 2000 in high school. And I think over the last 20 years, the problems that people were talking about then and the problems they're talking about now are markedly worse. I mean, we had Edward Snowden, we've had recessions, we've had near depressions, how many different things, like we have, like the Capitol is literally under siege now in the country. Like how bad does it have to get? And I think it's so easy, as in any walk of life that's not entrepreneurial, to make an excuse, to say, I'll do it tomorrow. And I think, by the way, I fully respect you if you decide living in California is the best thing and you refuse to acknowledge that there are any other beaches or any other girls in bikinis or any other nice restaurants anywhere in the world. You're wrong, but you're entitled to think that way. And I don't blame you for going where you want to go. But I think if you want to go where you're treated best, you have to really make an effort to divest yourself of really the propaganda that comes with living in one place, especially if that place is isolated, especially if your friends haven't traveled and you're just kind of in this bubble. Getting out there and seeing and making observations. Don't go to Italy on your next vacation. Don't go to Italy. When travel opens back up, please don't go to Italy. Go to somewhere, I would say, go to somewhere and open a bank account. Go to Georgia, go to Armenia, go to Ecuador, go somewhere where you can put $100 in the bank and get a bank account and see what that feels like. And then go home and log on to the online bank. Now, maybe you've got to report that bank account in your country. I'm not telling you to hide your money from the government. So check with your offshore tax professional, because your domestic tax professional probably has no clue. But, do that. See a place that no one else is going. I've sent so many investors, for example, not to necessarily invest, but just to go to Armenia. And they go to Yerevan and say, this is a lot better than I thought it would be. And they thought it was going to be some hellhole. And certainly the country of Armenia is developing, but you go to parts of that capital city, it's beautiful. And the service is great. And I think that you have to get that mindset. Otherwise, you're going to go back to the excuse making. And if you're an entrepreneur and if you're successful, you can't do that. And you're not going to be able to do it here. And I think that what I wanted to mention earlier was, it's so easy for those of us, I did this in my 20s, for those of us who are financially successful to think like I'm on the top of the world. And we screen some of these guys out who are 25 and it's their first big year, they made $1 million. And it's like, they're a little too cocky about it. And just because you're good, I did the same thing. Just because you're good at one thing doesn't mean you're the expert in everything. And I think that, thinking that somehow you've hit the jackpot in everything is not a good way to think. There's always things to improve. And I think getting out there and seeing it will open up your mind to the fact that you can do what we're talking about, whether it's one thing or the whole lot of things we've talked about.
Yeah. And that's really great advice. Just put $100 in and see how it feels. Which would be, just, yeah, you can't know until you actually go out there and experience it for yourself. So